Have you ever wondered what the instruction manual for a perfect society would even look like? Well, for thousands of years, ancient scriptures have offered something just like that. A kind of blueprint for governance, for law, and for liberty, all rooted in a divine perspective. Today, we're going to dive deep into that very blueprint.
Okay, so let's jump right in with the most fundamental question you can ask: why do we even need laws in the first place? I mean, really, it's a question that cuts right to the core of how we all live together, and these ancient texts, they give us a pretty fascinating and foundational answer.
So, to really unpack that answer, we're going to break it down into 5 key parts. We'll kick things off with where law even comes from. Then we'll look at different models of leadership. We'll examine the constant fight for freedom, understand the consequences of our choices, and finally, we'll ask the big question: do these texts really offer a working blueprint for a just society?
All right, first up, we're looking at how law is presented not as some human invention, but as a foundational gift, something given to establish order in the world from the very beginning. Now, what's absolutely central to this whole framework is the idea of a covenant. You have to understand this. In these scriptures, law isn't just a list of rules. It's a sacred two-way promise. Think of it like a divine contract. God sets the terms, and if people agree to live by them, specific blessings are promised in return.
And this isn't a new idea. It goes right back to the very beginning. According to the Book of Moses, this kind of covenant was offered to Adam himself. The principle is super clear. Turn to God, follow His law, and in return you'll get divine guidance. Obedience is directly tied to enlightenment.
And of course, the most famous example of this is the 10 Commandments. This wasn't just a friendly list of suggestions, right? It was the foundational legal and moral code for an entire nation. And notice how it covers both the vertical relationship, how people relate to God, and the horizontal one, how they treat each other. It sets up rules for worship, for family, and for basic ethics like honesty and the value of life. It's a complete structure for a stable society. So, you've got the law, but who enforces it? Who leads the people? That brings us to our next section, where we look at the different models of leadership presented in these texts. You can actually see a clear evolution in how the people were governed. It all started with prophets, like Moses, who gave direct spiritual guidance from God. Then you had the era of the judges. These were more like regional military and civic leaders. And finally, when the people demanded it, you get a centralized monarchy with famous figures like David and Solomon. So, what's the ideal form of government then? Well, this passage from the Book of Mormon gives us a fascinating take. It basically says a monarchy could be great, but, and this is a huge but, only under one critical condition. The king has to be a just man who establishes the laws of God. So the type of government mattered way less than the righteousness of the person in charge. And the texts give us this powerful case study, a real tale of 2 kings. On one side, you've got King Asa. He got rid of idols, he led the people in a covenant to seek God, and he strengthened the nation. His heart was called perfect. And then you've got King Jeroboam. He set up his own idols, created his own priesthood, and his name literally became a shorthand for sin. It's a night and day difference. One righteous leader brought stability, one wicked leader brought total corruption.
This idea of leadership directly impacts our third section, the active, ongoing struggle to maintain freedom. You know, freedom isn't a passive state. It's something that has to be constantly defended against tyranny. And the Book of Mormon is just filled with these specific warnings about the things that destroy liberty. And what's interesting is they're not talking about outside invasions. They're talking about threats from within. Things like cunning leaders using flattering words to get power, secret societies designed to protect criminals, and officials usurping government for their own personal gain. These are all painted as existential dangers to a free society.
So when faced with these kinds of threats, what were the people supposed to do? The scriptures say they were compelled to unite around one single goal. They had to fight for a unified cause, to maintain their rights, their religion, and their liberty. These weren't seen as 3 separate things. They were a single, interconnected foundation for their whole society.
And this all led to one of the most powerful symbols in the entire book, the title of liberty. It was literally a banner that called on all citizens to enter into a new covenant, not just with God this time, but with each other, to actively defend their rights and their religion, all so they could secure God's blessings and protection.
You know, this idea of making a covenant to be free leads us right into Section 4, and to the core principle that really drives this whole thing, agency, or as we often call it, the freedom to choose.
So what is agency exactly in this context?
Well, it's presented as a fundamental law of our existence. We are free to choose. But here's the catch. It's not a choice between a million different options. The texts frame it as a direct choice between two very clear paths. One leads to liberty and eternal life, the other leads to captivity and death. The freedom is all in the choosing, but the consequences of that choice, those are fixed.
And that stark choice has consequences not just for you and me, but for entire societies. The texts repeatedly show this direct link. When a society chooses to obey divine law, it gets blessings and freedom. When it chooses disobedience, the result is decline and, eventually, captivity. It's presented almost like a law of spiritual physics, a national cause and effect.
But this isn't just a big societal principle. It's deeply personal. This verse really drives home that we are all held accountable for our own choices, especially when we break a law that we know is true. Basically, you choose your actions, and by doing that, you're also choosing your wages, or the outcome you're going to get.
Okay, so after going through all of that, can we really piece these ideas together into a cohesive blueprint? Let's try to synthesize the core principles we've been talking about.
When you boil it all down, a pretty clear framework emerges. A just society, according to these texts, is built on some really key pillars. It has to be founded on divine law, it needs righteous and accountable leaders, its liberty must be defended by a virtuous people, it demands personal agency and responsibility, the whole thing is bound together by sacred covenants, and importantly, justice always has to be tempered with mercy. And maybe no single statement captures the essence of this entire blueprint better than this one. It's so simple, but so profound. The Spirit of God is the Spirit of freedom. The two are presented as one and the same.
Which leaves us with one final, pretty challenging question to think about. This whole blueprint seems to depend on one crucial thing: the character of the people. So according to these scriptures, can a society actually be free if its citizens are not themselves good? That's a thought to take with you.